As a skeleton, I never thought that I would be forcibly taken in by a rich demon lady. She even spent a huge fortune to restore my body, all for the purpose of continuing her bloodline conveniently. This was all because, with my lowly lineage, it defeated a legendary bloodline. Turns out, I was originally the Hell Asura. At max level in the Phantom Moon game world, even the strongest human faction warriors were like ants in my eyes. However, just as I killed them all and was about to log off, a pile of gibberish suddenly popped up in the system. When I woke up, I didn't return to reality. Instead, I found myself in a graveyard, and my level had been reset to 1. As I was pondering what was going on, a sinister laugh suddenly interrupted my thoughts. It seems like I've successfully summoned you. Seeing someone there, I couldn't wait to ask where this place was. The necromancer summoner, seeing that I could talk, was stunned for a moment. Could it be that he summoned a rare skeleton guard? Seeing that he wasn't answering for a long time, I decided to leave. I thought I'd find an NPC to ask. Seeing my movement, he was instantly enraged. He couldn't accept that a creature he summoned would ignore him. He immediately began chanting a spell. Suddenly, countless chains burst forth from the magic array behind him. In an instant, I was bound in place, unable to move. Then he reached out his hand to wipe my mind clean, intending to make me a loyal servant. Suddenly, a massive figure descended from the sky. The terrifying shockwave sent me flying. What happened next completely left me speechless. Giant creature with, above its head, walked past me. Under its feet was the lifeless body of the necromancer. Seeing this, I realized I was definitely not in the starter village. Later, I learned the truth from the guidance sprite. This is within the Phantom Moon game, the origin of all high-level bosses, and the most dangerous area of all. Thankfully, the nearest quest point isn't far from here. Following the guidance of the sprite, I finally arrived at Blood Moon City. Looking at the long queue waiting to enter the city, I didn't understand why they didn't use the small door on the right. Being clever as I am, I stepped through that door without hesitation, only to realize after entering that it was hosting a survival tournament. The participants in this competition were all powerful prodigies, yet, by accident, they had stumbled right into the tournament. Seeing that I was only level 1, everyone assumed I was there to give them an easy win. At this point, the host announced the rules. Due to one participant being only level 1. Therefore, all participants' levels were adjusted to level 10. Participants were free to choose their professions. Without hesitation, I chose assassin. After all, I was once hailed as the top assassin in the server. Then the host announced the competition rewards. Outstanding participants in the tournament would have a chance to become disciples of 2 legends in Blood Moon City. One was the famous master of the Northern Moon Hall, Zhuang Wai Shui. The other was the city's most beautiful woman, Wu Yu. Her only disciple was Han Yi Xiao, a 10-time tournament champion. Hearing this, my heart trembled. It's Big Brother. I finally found a clue about him. Back then, Big Brother disappeared completely after entering this game. After learning this, my third brother and I entered the game to search for him. Wu Yu must know where my brother is. I must find a way to approach her. However, the cold and distant Wu Yu noticed me staring at her. She seemed tempted to kill me on the spot. Then the host announced the start of the tournament. The first match featured the seeded player, Shui Hua from the Blood Corpse clan. Using his superior bloodline, he crushed his opponent with a single casual strike. The second match's greatsword warrior, Bei Lei, was just as formidable. With a single sword strike, he cut his opponent in half at the waist. In the third match, the dual blade demon, Zhe Er, also claimed an easy victory. But what no one expected was that I, the cannon fodder, skeleton, would be the winner of the fourth match. Next came the semi-finals of the second round. My drawn opponent was the dual blade demon, Zhe Er. The moment he took the stage, he told me to surrender. Someone like you isn't even worthy of my effort. Because I was busy thinking about how to deal with Wu Yu, that boss. I didn't catch whatever he was barking about. Seeing I had no intention to give up, the corners of his mouth curved upward. You've already missed your only chance to live. But don't worry, I'll make it quick. Then he unleashed a cross slash, lunging forward in one swift motion, and slashed down at me. Yet, I easily dodged it. Still, Zhe Er thought it was just blind luck. He immediately gathered power in his hands, and in the next second, 2 terrifying sword auras shot toward me. But again, I dodged them without effort. Seeing this, the host couldn't help but exclaim, "How did this cannon fodder contestant do that? He's managed to evade Zhe Er's fierce attacks again and again." It's simply because I'd already seen his weakness. Judging by the length of his arms and his weapon, I could pinpoint his exact attack range. As long as I stayed 2.5 meters away, I'd be safe. Moreover, his skulls caused him to momentarily freeze. So if I struck in that instant, I'd win. Right then, the audience began to question Zhe Er. Is he just pretending? He can't even finish off a little skeleton? Hearing this, Zhe Er was both furious and ashamed. Burning with the urge to hack me to pieces, he suddenly leapt into the air and launched a flash strike. This was exactly what I'd been waiting for. I seized the opportunity and used the Comet Strike Skell. And so, the dual-blade demon Jae fell. The host was left speechless, while cheers erupted from the audience. However, I still didn't gain the acknowledgement of the two strong warriors of Blood Moon City. No official recognition came my way. They just thought I was slightly smarter than average. After all, in their eyes, the skeleton race has the lowest bloodline status. At this moment, on the other side of the arena, Shui Hua was battling Bei Lei. Bei Lei wielded his greatsword, and flowed like water toward Shui Hua. However, Shui Hua didn't dodge or move. He let the greatsword strike his chest. Just when Bei Lei thought he had succeeded, Shui Hua suddenly smirked and mocked. The gap in bloodlines is an insurmountable chasm for you. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Hua caught Bei Lei's greatsword in his teeth. Under his immense biting force, the sword shattered instantly. Immediately after, Shui Hua unleashed a devastating attack on Bei Lei. Seeing Bei Lei lying lifeless on the ground, Shui Hua grew smug. I thought you were somewhat capable, but you turned out to be trash. Zhuang Wai Shui seemed impressed by Shui Hua, thinking he might be worth cultivating. But Wu Yu scoffed, saying he wasn't even fit to guard her door. Meanwhile, I watched Shui Hua, lost in thought. The standardized weapons shouldn't break so easily, unless this lion's stats were far above average. At this point, Shui Hua turned his gaze toward me, taunting, lowly trash. Are you too scared to step onto the stage? I'm not done playing yet. I knew that facing him, I stood almost no chance of winning. But if I didn't win this match, I couldn't get close to that woman, or find any clues about my brother. At the same time, Wu Yu seemed eager to see me continue. After 3 seconds of thought, I decided to step back into the ring. Seeing me dare to step up, Shui Hua burst into laughter. Lowly creatures are so stupid. One little taunt, and you fall for it. I'll crush your bones one by one, and savor them as a dessert to celebrate my victory. Hearing this, my eyes glinted. It seems your barking skells aren't half bad. With that, I transformed into a streak of light, charging toward him. Shui Hua, however, stood still, not dodging or flinching. He mocked me, saying my speed was no match for Bei Lei's. Just as he reached out to block me, I blinked behind him in an instant, but this lightning-fast move was still caught by him. With a quick bend of his waist, he dodged my attack. Seeing my failure, I immediately backed off. The next second, Shui Hua's attack came right at me. Luckily, I had retreated just in time to narrowly avoid the strike. Even my strongest advantage, speed, was completely ineffective. His overall stats were clearly far superior to mine. However, at that moment, Shui Hua noticed. A wound had appeared on his face. He couldn't accept being injured by a lowly creature, so he unleashed his ultimate trump card. For 15 seconds, his speed, strength, and critical hit rate increased by 20%. Seeing this, even Wu Yu couldn't help but anticipate my next move. The moment Shui Hua moved, a massive explosion erupted. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of me. I barely had time to react and hurriedly raised my dagger in defense. The impact sent me flying hundreds of meters. Just as I steadied myself, his Skell, explosive claw strike, was already inches away. Seeing this, I decided to reveal my hidden abilities. The moment his Skell was activated, I turned into a shadowy illusion. In the next instant, I appeared behind Shui Hua. This was the moment I've been waiting for. I guess, you can't turn around while using this Skell, can you? But Shui Hua laughed and said, you calculated well. But it's useless against me. With that, he let out a furious roar. In an instant, a surge of energy pinned me in place, unable to move. The host was left dumbfounded at this scene. Shui Hua had unleashed the Blood Corpse clan's exclusive bloodline Skell, Blood Fury Lion's Roar. This Skell immobilizes opponents within 5 meters. For 2.5 seconds. Even Zhuang Wai Shui couldn't help but praise him endlessly. However, Wu Yu seemed somewhat disappointed in me. Is this all you got? By then, Shui Hua's attack had already landed. In an instant, I lost my right arm. As I tried to retreat, my right leg bone also shattered. Seeing this, Shui Hua burst into laughter. How do you want to die next? But little did he know, everything was still within my control. The moment he stepped on my broken leg bone, my chance for a counterattack had arrived. I immediately threw the dagger in my hand at him. At the same time, my severed arm behind him moved. He easily deflected the attack, thinking I was just struggling in vain. He didn't even notice behind him. Then I activated the Skell backstab, and 2 figures simultaneously launched attacks from his front and back. In an instant, the dagger pierced through his body from behind. The next second, he collapsed to the ground. At that moment, the audience fell completely silent. Even Wu Yu and Zhuang Wai Shui were stunned. At this point, Shui Hua desperately begged the spectators for help. But just as I raised my hand to finish him off, Zhuang Wai Shui suddenly let out a cold snort. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Shui Hua. He slowly raised his right hand, and gently clenched it. Instantly, my body was torn apart by a terrifying force, leaving only my skull intact. Suddenly, a delicate hand intervened and stopped the force. Wu Yu held my broken body in her hand. Dark energy gathered at her fingertips. It was one of her signature moves, the Azure Sky Finger. A terrifying dark beam shot out instantly. It blew a massive hole in the arena's city walls. At this moment, Zhuang Wei Shui was in a pitiful state, with a gaping wound on his right arm. After finishing her move, Wu Yu began reconstructing my body. She domineeringly declared, "From now on, you are my personal property." Soon, my body was fully reconstructed. But I stared at my new body in disbelief. I realized that my reconstructed body was actually much sturdier than before. Dark energy began to gather again at Wu Yu's fingertips. She turned around, grinning, and said to Wang Ba Rabbit, "If you don't announce the result, I'll give you two a taste of it as well." Hearing this, Wang Ba Rabbit broke into a cold sweat. Ignoring all formalities, he quickly announced that I was the champion of the tournament, and one of the rewards was 5,000 express, which instantly boosted me to level 15. Thus, I gained the skill, Shadow Division, which permanently increases agility by 20%. Another reward was a level 15 Epic Dagger, converted to suit my own HP recognition attribute. Special, 1d% of damage dealt, turns out to be a rare lifesteal attribute. Seeing this, Wang Ba Rabbit was full of envy. At that moment, Wu Yu reminded them to quickly start the Fengyun Festival. Hearing that, I was dumbfounded. Was the tournament not over yet? Host Mianzi immediately explained, "The Wind and Cloud platform has two parts. In the first part, the arena battles. Once a champion is chosen, we move on to the second part, the Fengyun Festival. The Wind and Cloud platform champion will descend upon the player's world as a limited boss. The number of players, and the amount of express and contribution points they earn, determine who can exchange for high-level skills and gear." Just then, Zhuang Wei Shui, the wolf fox, came over to provoke Wu Yu. "I'm definitely reporting this to the city lord. You're trying to get rid of me. Then seize military resources, and rebel." Hearing this, Wu Yu flew into a rage. "You old bastard, you were the one who disrupted the regular tournament. And now you dare to accuse me? Just try leaving the city to battle again, and see if I don't cut off your garrison and your supplies first." Seeing them about to come to blows, Wang Ba Rabbit and I quickly slipped away to prepare for the next event. After all, if they really started fighting, half the city would suffer. But just then, Wu Yu's piercing gaze swept over us. "Don't embarrass me. If you don't kill at least 1,000 people, don't come back." Hearing this, I immediately dashed into the portal. Descent successful. Mission codename, Bloodwalker. I soon appeared in the player's world, triggering a random achievement codex quest. Note: achieve this task based on Wu Yu's unintended words. In no time, a system-wide announcement informed all players of a timed raid boss appearance. All players are advised to participate in the hunt. Nearby players who got the news quickly spotted me. At that moment, bracelet on my wrist activated. The current equipment quality was common. Its quality improves every 10 levels. It also grants a random profession-exclusive skill upon upgrade. Skills were refreshed. I obtained the skill, Hunter's Gale. Deals 110%, 120%, 130%, or 150% physical damage. Targets suffering over 510% damage will trigger a chain attack on a random nearby enemy. With each kill, the skill grants an additional 150% damage bonus. After reading the skill description, I had a brilliant idea. If I weakened multiple enemies, then used this skill, the damage stacking would make it a god-tier AoE ability. Suddenly, several players attacked me at once. So, I started testing my theory on them. First, I hit them with a basic attack, then unleashed Hunter's Gale. In the following moments, waves of players arrived one after another, but without exception, they all fell under my blade. In just 30 minutes, I had already killed 314 players. The equipment dropped on the ground covered the entire area. Sadly, I couldn't pick up the players' dropped items. So, I sent the coordinates to my third brother. When he arrived and saw the scene, he was stunned in place. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, a young girl had just soloed a level 15 epic boss. Not only did she level up to 18, but she also obtained an epic level 15 bracelet. Heart of Resistance. When affected by control skills, this property increases all attributes by 10 points. Additionally, it increases resistance to control effects by 20%. There's a ZD% chance to raise resistance by 20 points. Watching from the shadows, I was stunned. A player who could solo an epic level boss was something I was seeing for the first time. Then, guided by the sprite, I learned that the girl's class was a hidden one among swordsmen. Title: Moonlight Knight. Suddenly, Luna noticed someone nearby. In the next moment, 3 players with sinister smiles stepped out of the bushes. Bald Leader immediately threatened her. "Hand over the purple gear. You just looted, and I'll spare your life." However, Luna smiled calmly and replied, "If you've got the guts, come and take it from me." As soon as she spoke, two of the thugs drew their swords and approached her. But as Luna unsheathed her sword, the two thugs were instantly engulfed by countless sword flashes. Seeing this, the bald leader realized he had messed with the wrong person. Still, he tried to remain composed and said, "I'm a core member of the Arrogant Guild. If you dare touch me." Before he could finish his sentence, his head was cut off by a swift sword strike. After dealing with the three players, Luna suddenly spoke, "Have you seen enough?" Realizing she had noticed me, I stepped out from the tree and jumped down. At that moment, the air was thick with killing intent. Just as we were about to fight each other, two opposing factions suddenly appeared around us. One was the Arrogant Guild members, and the other was a group of boss hunters. Seeing this, both Luna and I halted our movements. After exchanging glances, I slipped away into the crowd of Arrogant Guild members, while Luna disappeared among the boss hunters. Seeing this, both factions immediately tried to pursue their targets. But instead, they collided head-on with each other. Neither side would back down, and a chaotic brawl ensued. But at this moment, Luna and I returned to the scene. In an instant, both factions had suffered heavy losses. Desperate to retaliate, they began indiscriminate attacks. Soon, everyone was left with critical health. Seeing this, I immediately used Hunter's Gale. Screams echoed through the forest. In the blink of an eye, I had killed 999 players. Next came the decisive battle between Luna and me. In the next second, we both charged toward each other at full speed. As the clash resounded violently, a system notification sounded. "Congratulations, you have completed a random achievement." Meanwhile, in the real world, Bai Xiaoyue removed her gaming helmet. She began jotting down notes in her notebook. The notes contained predictions about my stats and skills. Others have unparalleled bloodlines. Mine is like sewage. To purify my bloodline, Wu Yu invited me into the blood pool. Just moments ago, after killing Bai Xiaoyue, I completed the 1000 kills achievement. As a reward, I obtained a mythic grade item, Phantom God's Earrings. This item allows the wearer to freely change their race, gaining racial passives, abilities, and language mastery. Congratulations on completing the Fengyun Festival event. You've earned 1000 contribution points. The reward express leveled me up to level 21, unlocking the Skell Rending Complaint. This skill enhances your next basic attack, dealing 180% physical damage to the target, with a 20% chance to inflict a bleeding state. When I teleported back to the Fengyun arena, the crowd erupted in cheers. From a cannon fodder contestant to the champion of the Fengyun arena, a series of achievements made my name resound across the entire continent. Seeing this, Zhuang Wai Shui turned away and left. However, Wu Yu's lips curved slightly into a smile. "Not bad," she said, "at least you didn't disgrace me." With those words, she raised her delicate hand. She tore open a dimensional passage on the spot. "Follow me." Moments later, we arrived in the Bloodpool secret realm in Blood Moon City. Stepping out of the rift, I was left speechless. The sight before me was utterly astonishing. Seeing my reaction, Wu Yu smirked. She explained, "A player's stats depend on their bloodline and the quality of their gear. Your bloodline, however, is of the lowest grade. But this blood pool can help purify your bloodline. How much you purify depends on your fortune." Meanwhile, Zhuang Wai Shui in Beihui Hall was fuming with rage. If not for that useless fool from the Wild Lion clan, I wouldn't have lost face in front of so many people. But the old man beside him said calmly, "This isn't entirely a bad thing. The Huang clan has always wanted to ally with you. Now, by protecting their descendants at your expense, their loyalty will surely deepen. As for Wu Yu, while we can't act openly against him, I have a plan to provoke him." The old man explained the entire scheme to Zhuang Wai Shui. Hearing this, Zhuang Wai Shui immediately agreed. Back in the blood pool, I began absorbing its power. The speed of my absorption even astonished Wu Yu. But at that moment, guards from the city lord's residence suddenly arrived. They declared that the city lord had summoned Wu Yu to the main city immediately. Wu Yu initially tried to delay for a few days, but the captain produced the city lord's blood summon order. "Defiance will result into ATH, he warned. Seeing the token, Wu Yu finally relented. Before leaving, she reminded me to stay safe. The moment she left, my absorption rate increased dramatically. A swirling vortex of energy formed above my head. Simultaneously, a golden orb began to take shape. As time passed, the energy enveloped me completely. Meanwhile, several figures appeared on the mountain peak. Just a moment ago, I was nothing more than a broken skeleton. In the next moment, I evolved into someone who even surpassed Kun by 3 levels. Seeing this, Wu Yu's face instantly turned red. She said she would grant me one wish. It turns out, just moments ago, Zhuang Wai Shui, trying to reclaim his lost pride from the Fengyun arena, had falsely used the city lord's authority to send Wu Yu away. At the same time, he dispatched Beihui Hall's top shadow unit to assassinate me, but Shui Yu had already uncovered their scheme. Instead of stopping the assassination, He found the perfect vantage point and sat to watch. The captain of the guard, visually, don't rush. The show's about to begin. At the same time, an assassin slashed at the energy orb above the blood pool. As the orb shattered, it formed an energy vortex. Moments later, a figure stepped out of the vortex. Seeing this, the assassin was dumbfounded. I just hit him. Why is he unharmed? Save the explanations for later. Finish him now. They darted toward me as shadows. By this time, my bloodline had fully evolved. With snow-white short hair and a unique aura, I radiated an imposing presence. The two assassins froze in shock, trying to warn the others. But in the next second, they were both eliminated. The shadow captain was stunned at the sight. The intel said he was just a level 15 nobody. Why does he look this dangerous? He signaled everyone to attack together. I clenched my fist tightly, and the assassins froze mid-action. A large hole appeared in each of their chests. The shadow captain, enraged by the sight, unleashed all his ultimate skills. But I easily nullified all his furious attacks. As he prepared to strike again, I let out a mocking laugh. Seeing my reaction, the shadow captain felt a breath of death. Without hesitation, he tried to retreat. But he still lost an arm in the process. My strength had far exceeded his expectations. Thinking about his shadow unit, the pride of Zhuangwei Shui, and the strongest force of Beihui Hall, he shouted, "Brothers of the Blood Shadows, sacrifice yourselves to complete the mission." The next second, they plunged their blades into their bodies. Simultaneously, their sacrificial power merged into the shadow captain. Seeing this, I calmly activated the phantom god earrings. My body reverted to its skeletal form. At that moment, the shadow captain's fierce attack was inches away. But in my skeletal form, I easily evaded the fatal strike. Seizing the opportunity during his attack's delay, I struck back. And with a single slash, the shadow unit was wiped out. At that moment, a pair of jade-like hands applauded nearby. "Impressive, your bloodline has improved significantly," Wu Yu said with admiration. "These assassins were under Zhuangwei Shui's command. You've passed my test, and those who sent me away have already been dealt with." Suddenly, Wu Yu noticed something amusing about me, and her face turned red. Only then did I realize I had been fighting completely naked. Embarrassed, I quickly covered myself. With a playful smile, Wu Yu said, "I'll grant you one wish, anything you want." But all I wanted was information about someone. Hearing this, Wu Yu seemed inexplicably disappointed, but she still told me, "Han Yishao is no longer here. Though he was unrivaled in strength, he only ever took on one disciple. And now, he has chosen you, a broken skeleton. As a reward for evolving your bloodline, I'll grant you any wish you desire." But, I only asked her about Han Yishao's whereabouts. Hearing this, Wu Yu seemed inexplicably saddened. "He's no longer here," she said. At her words, the air around us felt frozen. For a long moment, I finally asked what had happened to him. However, instead of answering my question, he looked annoyed and impatient. "This is already your second question." Hearing this, I turned away, disappointed. Seeing this, Wu Yu quickly said, "Fine, I'll tell you. But you have to answer my question first. Ever since you heard Han Yishao's name at the arena, you've been staring at me. You fight so hard to win, just to ask about my disciple?" "You're absolutely right," I replied, "because he's my elder brother. Not by blood, but closer than one. Since we were children, he's always looked after me and my younger brother. But ever since he entered this game, he disappeared from the real world. Now I've entered this game, willing to do anything to find him." Hearing this, Wu Yu fell silent. She suddenly remembered her disciple asking her for 2 sets of gear, saying it was for his 2 younger brothers. At this thought, a warm feeling surged into her cold heart. She then told me what she knew about Han Yishao. After defeating the Night King, and creating his legendary feat in the arena, he entered the Fengyun festival as usual. But this time, he never returned. No one could believe it was true. Afterward, I searched everywhere. And after a long time, I found out his last known location was the Infernal Abyss. Hearing this, I excitedly asked if she could take me there. But Wu Yu sighed deeply. "I can't transport you to that place. That world is isolated by an unknown power. Even with my abilities, I can't force my way in." Hearing this, I immediately suspected it might be a special map within the game. So I summoned CC to search for any information on the Infernal Abyss. But every search came up blank. Seeing this, I started to panic. I quickly switched to manual input to query the database. I needed to find my brother's last known location in the game, and the time he logged off. If I could pinpoint the Infernal Abyss, I might be able to find him. Soon, I completed my setup. When I entered the password, lines of code appeared before me. Among them was the code for the Infernal Abyss map. But its complexity was unlike anything I had ever seen. Still, I attempted to forcefully modify the code. A warning message about unauthorized intrusion popped up. It warned that I would be forcibly logged out. Then, the original code began rewriting itself. I stared in disbelief at everything unfolding. Wu Yu, however, thought I just didn't believe her. That's all I know. If you don't believe me, you can search for yourself. What had just happened made me suspect the game company was involved. It seemed the only way to find the truth was to go there. So I asked Wu Yu if there were any other ways to access that world, besides teleportation. Hearing my determination to go, Wu Yu tried to dissuade me. To access the player world, you need to pass through the special Fengyun Calamity battlefield, and there's also a time limit. Even your brother Han Yishao, who evolved his bloodline twice in the blood pool, failed to return from that special space, let alone you, as you are now. As I pondered whether to take the risk, CC, the guide spirit, suddenly informed me there was another way to enter the player world. I immediately told Wu Yu about it, and bid her farewell. If you're determined to go, don't forget me when you get there. I'll be waiting here for your good news. Meanwhile, in the player world, a massive explosion instantly obliterated several monsters. The one who unleashed this spell was my younger brother, a Fei. Turned out he was leveling up with 3 girls. Each of them affectionately called him Brother A Fei. He was completely hooked by them. He also learned from them. The equipment buyer was nearby, so he followed the 3 girls in search of this so-called merchant. Along the way, however, they were surrounded by a group of players. The 3 leading them regarded A Fei as though he were easy prey. After all, A Fei once single-handedly kept hundreds of pieces of equipment for himself. Facing this, A Fei hurriedly shielded the 3 girls behind him. In the next second, those very girls flashed a menacing look. Right after, 3 vicious attacks slammed into his back. Only then did he realize it had all been a setup by those 3 women. They were all members of the Mianzi Guild. They used the 3 women as bait to lure big fish in this game world. Then, they'd strip the victim of all equipment and gold. Learning the truth made A Fei furious. Swindling me for money is one thing, but tricking my feelings is unforgivable. Seeing the fat sheep refuse to cooperate, the Mianzi Guild decided to rob him by force. But the 2 in front were instantly blasted away by A Fei. However, more players attacked him from behind. In response, A Fei used his flame palm to repel several of them. Just then, an arrow hurtled toward his head. Luckily, he reacted in time and blocked it with his hand, but it still knocked him back several steps. A quick-footed woman seized the chance and dashed straight at A Fei. In the next moment, their attacks collided violently. With A Fei's mana nearly depleted, he was at a disadvantage, while the woman smugly pulled out the mana potions he'd given her and waved them in his face. Brother, you gave me all your mana pots. Now be a good boy and hand over the gear you got from that real-world boss. If you don't cooperate, brother, we'll camp your corpse until everything in your backpack drops. Hearing this, A Fei realized he was doomed. They had him cornered. He began hurling profanities at them, venting all his bottled-up anger. In mere moments, 100 iconic curses echoed through the forest. The bespectacled man from the Mianzi Guild could no longer hold back and attacked A Fei. But A Fei just stood there, not resisting. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind him. In the next moment, the bespectacled man was riddled with fatal wounds. Dare to touch my loot? Anyone who's played games knows. The sweet-talking girls you meet online are most likely burly men in real life. And these 3 girls are actually men cross-dressing for loot. Their plan was to lure a man in and fatally ambush him. Turns out, they were the infamous trio from the Scam Guild. Just as they were about to finish off their victim and take his gear, I intervened, scaring them off. When the man recognized my ID, he clung to my leg, crying his eyes out. Second brother, you have to help me. They not only tried to rob me, but also deceived my pure, innocent heart. Hearing him call me second brother, the trio became even more excited. They assumed I must have even better loot. With a wave, they signaled their guild members to attack. But after 2.5 seconds, no one showed up. They turned around to find all their comrades were already dead or offline. Sight left the trio completely dumbfounded. A voice from behind sent shivers down their spines. I just heard that you guys want to guard my master. Why are...
Subscribe our channel for more fast updates. Thank you.